Let's round it all out with the North Texas Mean Green. Aren't you excited to do this?
No.
North Texas, if you missed it.
Do better.
North Texas finishes the year 4-6, 3-4 in conference. Offensive grade, I'm going to give them a C+. I don't know if I have a ton of complaints about the offense.
Yeah. Once they figured out the quarterback scenario,
they had
rolling.
one of the very best receivers in the nation. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about him in a moment. One of the very best receivers in the nation. Once they settled on a quarterback, right? They were able to sit in and feel like they knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They were. I'll go to my grave saying that whenever they were able to run the ball effectively, they were one of the more unstoppable offenses in
that Middle Tennessee game they had where they ran for
they were able to run the ball effectively.
Yards.
They had bouts of inconsistency, but overall, I thought that the offense looked pretty good.
Yeah,
this was not the the offenses of old for North Texas.
No,
right? This is not the Mason Fine vintage offense, but it was pretty good.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Once they figured it out,
I think C+ is right where they deserve to be on the offensive side.
And you are exactly right on the defensive
grade. Talk about the defense.
A big fat F.
I don't think there's any way you could go with anything else.
No, they failed.
I mean, if you are looking for bright spots, they were decent at getting after the quarterback. Not great.
No.
They were decent about getting after the quarterback. Okay?
And that's being generous.
They were decent. I don't think they were spectacular. I thought they were decent. Pretty much everything else.
The secondary was extra butt.
The secondary was very bad. The run defense was horrible. They were astonishingly bad. Okay? This is a team that gave up 44 points a game, guys. 44 points a game. They gave up 517 yards per game on average.
Yeah, and that's
They gave up half a dime on average every timeout. The defense was a disaster, an abject disaster, and they wasted what was a decent offense that if you just put an average I mean this sincerely. If you put an average defense out there, nothing spectacular, you put an average middle-of-the-road defense out there, this is a 7-win team.
Right, and that was the thing. If you even go back to the Mason Fine years, it was the defense that kept them from taking that step forward and winning a bowl game or winning the conference championship when they made it. And it's like, I don't necessarily understand if it's just recruiting issues with the defensive side of the ball, if it's coaching issues, but Seth Luttrell has got to find people to put in charge of this defense to get them to do anything. Because the offense has been pretty stinking consistent his entire career there.
They struggled a little bit in 2019 as they were they had a bit of an identity crisis and they couldn't really figure out what they were doing. But 2020, the offense was fine. Again, I don't have any major complaints with the offense. But the defense,
they'll never take a step forward if they can't figure out a defensive staff that can get these guys to produce.
Terrible. The team MVP, I think, is easy.
Oh, everyone knows.
It's Jaelon Darden, the wide receiver. He was the third leading receiver in the nation. If you didn't know that, maybe people don't know this.
No.
I don't know if people know exactly how good he was this year. But Devontae Smith lapped the field on everybody, as far as receiving is concerned. But he had the second most touchdowns in the nation by a large margin. Okay, by a large margin. It was Devontae Smith at 23, Jaelon Darden at 19. The next guy's at 12.
Yeah.
Okay, 74 catches, 1,190 yards, 19 touchdowns. No wonder he's off to the NFL. We wish him well. Jaelon Darden was a superstar.
And that's
for North
not
Texas.
to mention, like we said earlier, there was no quarterback identity for almost the first half of that season, and he still put up numbers like that with a quarterback going, well, we don't really know which one we're playing, It wasn't like he had Mason throwing to him.
No. So, early look at 2021. Obviously, they lose Darden, who was their most consistent weapon. They have actually been hit relatively hard by the transfer portal.
Jason Bean's gone.
Trey Siggers is gone. A fair number of the defense is gone, maybe for better or for worse, but like Cameron Johnson's transferring to UCLA. They are bringing in a couple guys, including John Davis from Texas Tech. But again, a lot of this comes down to whether or not you think that defense can take a step forward. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a decent amount of turnover. About 40% of their production is going to be turned over on the defense. Is that a good thing? Like, do you want experience that was bad, or do you want new blood? That's always kind of a big question.
Right.
I think it's reasonable to expect that the offense is going to be about as good as it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think
they just got a new quarterback commit today. The old North Carolina Jace Rutter.
North Carolina quarterback Jace Rutter is transferring in. He's going to compete for the starting job. I think that he would probably be no worse than co-favorite to take over the job.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think it's reasonable to expect that. I think we know what we're going to get for the most part. I think if you take a look at the offenses that Seth Luttrell's put together,
consistent.
You know more or less what you're going to get. Sometimes they're like an A-, sometimes they're a C, but like it's somewhere in between, right? They're almost never going to be an F. It's all up to the defense, right? I hate to say it, but
and they just made those hires the other day too, but they have to get it figured out.
If they don't, then they're going to be in trouble, and look, they're bringing in Phil Bennett. Phil Bennett's a veteran. Phil Bennett's a guy who knows his way around defense. He's a journeyman. We'll say that. It's the 10th different school he'll be at. He's got his work cut out for him, and a lot of this comes down to whether or not he can figure it out and put that defense in a position to go from F to C. We're not asking for them to be A+. We're asking them to go from F to C.
And I think that says a lot too about where the head coaching job lies, is if he can get that done this year, because I'm not ready to say he's on the hot seat just yet, but
if they have a bad year, then you can start talking.
It's in talks.
It's in talks. I'll say that. So that is your North Texas Postmortem.